Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I am Ilmashir Abdul Magid. I'm from BSSW1C and my report is the Artistan and the Guilds. So when I said Artistan and the Guilds, back in the day, these are the skilled workers who want to join the guilds. So let's start with the first paragraph. It says here that the museums are packed with numerous artifacts and interesting objects from all over the world that have survived centuries for us all to see. And it has a magnificent structures that are often appreciated not only for their historical significance but more so for their aesthetic characteristics. It became a tourist destination for those who wish to explore and see the remarkable facade or interior and even the the details up close. Perhaps what made the difference was the materials, medium, and the principle behind the process of their creation. This paragraph emphasized that museums house a diverse collection of artifacts and objects from around the globe, many of which have endured through the ages. These items are not only valuable of their historical context but also for their unique beauty and artistic qualities. It suggests that distinctiveness of these pieces comes from the specific materials used, the artistic medium, and the creative principles involved in their making, all of which contribute to their overall appeal and significance. The second paragraph is another contributor factor is the emergence of technology and knowledge in managing and conserving all of these objects and structures, enabling the retention of the integrity of the artwork and the intention of the artist in terms of the design and overall aesthetics. Craftsmen and builders in the past did not have sophisticated terminologies and principles that architects and engineers abide by today, but they fulfilled overlapping roles such as draftsman, architect, engineer, and even as a builder. What they had was a sense on how materials behaved, how the environment, light, and weather patterns have affected structures, and other principle of creation. Experimentation and luck must not also be forgotten. So it explains here that the discussion of how the modern technology and knowledge have enhances our ability to manage and conserve historical artifacts and structures. Both the physical integrity of artworks and the original artistic. It contrasts today detailed in systematic approach and architect and engineering with the more holistic and intuitive methods by the craftsmen and builders in the past. These early artisans or the skilled workers often performed multiple roles like yung sinabi natin na draftsmen, architects, engineers, and builders rather. It relies on an innate understanding of how materials respond to environmental factors like light and weather, so the role of experimentation and even chance is acknowledged as the key. Their creative process, the survival of Gothic cathedrals such as the Cologne Cathedral, and serves as a prime example. Their longevity is attributed not merely to construction but also the well considerate and articulate building process that have been allowed these structures to endure through the ages. So, in what is meant here is a kind of formalization of craft education in which regulation was set in place. Here, skills qualification was needed for an apprentice to register under a particular craft guild. These guilds were prevalent during the Middle Ages, particularly during 13th to 15th century, where towns had formalized groups of artisans or craftsmen who took on a particular specialization or trade, like shoemakers, textile, and glass workers. The practice of artists was not grounded on the idea of individual capacities, or rather, um, it was it was the idea of success or commitment to the work. To the work together as a collective, guilds were a type of special social fellowship and associated structure with rules, customs, rights, and responsibilities. So the explanation here is that during the Middle Ages, craft education became formalized through guilds or groups for specific trades like shoemaking, carpentry, and masonry. To learn a craft, like the apprentice had to meet a certain skill requirements to join a guild instead of focusing on individual talent. These guilds stressed working together, following set of rules and tradition. This system helped the artisan of the or the skilled workers to gain deeper expertise in their trade over their lifetime. And the fourth paragraph naman is the master artisan or craftsman would be open to open to hiring apprentice who would be under his tutelage and instruction. In these skills, artistry and technology flourished under one roof. In the context of the cathedral construction site, the master or mason oversaw the work by numerous men of varying artistic and abilities and skills from the smiths or metalwork like carpenters, carriers, and glazers. In these guilds naman po is let's explain this in a simple manner. In these guilds, master craftsmen hired apprentices to learn their trade. These skills brought together art and technology, allowing different specialized or specialists to work together. For example, yung cathedral construction is a big project for them kasi until now it still exists. A master mason managed various skilled workers such as metalworks, carpenters, carriers, and stained glass artists. Um, Next is this brought to light various ways of thinking that transferring knowledge and skills by visualizing and articulating principles, processes, and tricks of the trade, both in words and in print, through manuals and publication. These printed publications were done cheaply and did not have the same toughness as with handbooks and manuals of biblical proportion. Aside from funds, another hurdle was the fact that some of the knowledge that went into production was difficult to put into words. This can be attested in a way that often we ourselves at a loss when tasked with explaining a particular step or process in something that we created. In addition to the fact that receiving the explanation of how something is made does not automatically make us personarios or who can carry out the task bound-free. It explains that new methods were developed to share skills and knowledge using both visual aids and printed guides. Pero this inexpensive printed materials were not as detailed as throughout the handbooks. In addition to this explanation, some aspects of the craft were hard to describe in words, much like how we sometimes struggle to explain a step in a process we understand. Even if someone reads about how to do something, it doesn't mean that they can easily do it themselves. Next is the visual arts. An example of artist strongly influenced by this was Albert Albrecht Albrecht Dürer, born in 1471. His father was a goldsmith. That is why he also apprenticed as much. Later on, he shifted to the visual arts. During that time, it was customary to travel after completing an apprenticeship to gather more experience and knowledge elsewhere. His life was rife with travels, fame, and fortune. One of the biggest credits to his practice was his dedication and interest in scholarship, with his attendance to a close friends, meetings of artists and scholars. He also published quite a number of books, treatises, including those that talk about practical skills as an artist, which would be useful to other artisans and craftsmen who dare to read it. Mostly on perspective and human proportion, his works were written in the first person singular format, practical in the way it was written and was supported by illustration. It also helped that his illustrations were laid out opposite the text that explains it. Although he was caught between the time when canons were still being followed, he suggested to his readers that his was merely recommendation and that if they found a better way to go about it, then one should depart from what he had learned. It explains here that Albert Dorer, an artist born in 1471 who started a goldsmith because of his father's trade, later he switched to the visual arts. During his time, it was common for artists to travel after their apprenticeship to learn more. The daughter's life was involved a lot of travel and he became quite famous and successful. He was very dedicated to learning, often attending meetings with other artists and scholars. He also wrote many books and guides that shared practical art skills, especially on topics like perspective on and human proportion. These writings were clear and practical with illustration placed next to the text to help explain his ideas. Even though he lived during a time of strict art rules, he advises readers to experiment and try new methods if they found a better way. So next is the timeline is a bit skewed that the culture of artisan became prevalent in the Philippines as well, particularly during the Spanish colonial period. Firmly done with the spirit of the communal and the everyday patronship, the way art was perceived, this was both the case for religious and secular art, wherein the existence of the artisans proved to be immense of use. It was the mimesis or copying that artisan first learned to depict religious images and scenes. Friars, being non-artists themselves, provided the reference that artists could use. During the propagation of the faith, Spanish friars commissioned a lot of artisans to carve, paint, and engrave images for church and public sites. And each local this this explains that during the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, the culture of skilled artisans became important in the Philippines. They used to be a community effort, but with the introduction of patronage, art was seen in a new way, both for religious and non-religious purposes. Artisans learned to create religious images by copying existing works provided by friars who themselves were not artists. These friars hired local artisans to produce artworks for churches and public spaces, and each era developed its own unique style. Next is the way they depict the way the depictions were made, the manner in which Poholano artists would paint saint and scenes were different from those of Rizal or in Laguna. Like other Baroque churches that benefit from the talents of artists, special colonial or other Baroque, also lined with frescoes and ceiling paintings, with a number of them undergoing restoration in the early 90s project. Gisame is a collective endeavor amongst enthusiasts and advocates who aim to promote this art from through documentation, engagement, and appreciation of surviving paintings in more than 60 churches in the Philippines. Technology and heritage substantial substantial part of this project. One example of the Spanish architecture that has been documented in the Church of the Most Holy Trinity in Loay, Bohol. It was built in 1822. The ceiling paintings were rendered through depict, depicting biblical scenes in 2003. It became a national historical landmark. It was therefore unfortunate that this church was one of those heavily damaged during the devastating earthquake that rattled in Bohol. It was on 2013. The only section of the structure that remained erected was the bell tower. Although it is but a fragment of the real thing, the photos taken by Project Kisame were able to document the beauty of the ceiling paintings prior to its destruction. It explains here that the different religion in Philippines developed their own unique styles in paintings really in terms of religious scene. For example, in Bujalano, artists painted saints and scenes differently from than artists from Rizal or Laguna. In Spanish colonial times, Baroque church were decorated with fresco ceiling paintings, which are restored in the early 90s. It is a group called Project Kisame work to document and promote the ceilings paintings in over 60 churches using modern technology and conservation techniques. One example is what we said kanina is the Most Holy Trinity in Luay, Bohol. It was built in 1822 and its ceiling featured trompe-l'oeil paintings that created an illusion showing biblical scenes. The church was declared a national historical in 2003, but it was damaged by an earthquake on 2013, leaving the bell only. However, the project Kisame photographs captured the beauty of the ceiling before they were destroyed. And lastly, the church. The next patrons of the arts were then the new elite, the ilustrados or the middle class, along with the foreign guests who wanted souvenirs to take along with them. In the previous chapter, it was mentioned that portrait paintings became a fad, but looking closer at the paintings will reveal the specificity of the style in which they were painted. Two other important genres were for painting at the time were the tipos del paes and the letras y figuras. The former was watercolor painting showcased the different local inhabitants of the country in different garbs and clues to their occupation and status, while the latter combination of the principles were of tipas del paes and incorporated as it means to illustrate the letters of one name or surname. The the simple explanation here is it's how the church support for the arts came from the new middle class, the ilustrados, and the foreign visitors who wanted souvenirs while portraiting paintings became very popular. There were other painting styles too. For example, yung what we mentioned, the tipos del paes were watercolors that were showed to local people in their everyday clothes and roles and the letras by figuras used these images to form the letters of a person's name. A major step in organizing art education was taken by Damian Domingo, who founded the Academia de Dibujo, where he was famous for his tipos del paes paintings and taught the detailed miniature style based on European art. Later, other art schools began to teach additional styles like still life and landscaping painting. That's all for me. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you understand something.
Good day, everyone. I'm Hassan Joshua, and today I'm going to discuss the artist and his studio. Nung panahon ng Middle Age hanggang Renaissance, nagkaroon ng malaking pagbabago sa mundo ng art. Dati, ang mga craftsmen parang artisan lang na gumagawa ng art bilang trabaho ay hindi kilala bilang artist. Pero sa panahon ito, nag-evolve sila at naging independent artist, meaning may sarili silang pangalan at identity sa artwork. Isa rin sa pinakamalaking pagbabago ay ang paglitaw ng circular art o yung art na hindi lang tungkol sa relihiyon. Dati karamihan ng art ay religious theme, pero nung Renaissance, naging common na rin ang mga painting na tungkol sa everyday life, mythology at iba pa. Bago ang Renaissance, hindi pumima ang mga artists sa artwork nila, kaya hindi alam kung sino ang gumawa. Pero nung nagsimula silang maglagay ng signatures sa paintings na naging milestones, ito sa history art, nagkaroon na ng ownership ang mga artist sa gawa nila. Dahil dito, nagkaroon ng mas maraming variety pagdating sa style at technique ng art. At syempre, ang studio ng artist ang naging sentro ng lahat ng pagbabagong ito. Artist studio noon at ngayon. Ngayon, interesado na ang mga tao sa studios kasi gusto nilang makita kung paano nabubuo ang isang artwork. Ang studio ay parang extension ng artist, kaya mahalaga ito sa kanilang creative process. Noong Renaissance, naging mas structured ang mga studios. Dito nagaganap ang mga negotiation sa pagitan ng artist at ng kanilang patrons. Yung nagbabayad sa kanila, may dalawang main parts ng studio. Ang studio law, private space ng artist, kung saan siya nag-isip, nag-aaral at nagde-develop ng ideas. At yung pangalawa yung bottega, mas malaking area kung saan talaga ginagawa ang artwork kasama ng apprentice, mga trainee na tumutulong sa master artist. Then, pagdating ng 17th century, nag-fuse o nagsama na ang studio at bottega sa isang workspace, lalo na sa mga artist na gumagamit ng oil painting. Matagal kasi ang proseso nito. May mixing, layering at dyeing, kaya naging flexible ang setup ng studio. Hanggang late 80s, ganito pa rin ang format ng maraming artist studio. France, the rise of art academies and salons. Sa France, sumikat ng art academies at salons. Hindi lang ito para gumawa ng art, pero para rin sa criticism at analysis ng artwork. Dito binibigyan ng critique ang mga artwork para makita kung ano ang maganda at dapat i-improve. Sobrang prestige ng ang makasali sa mga official art salons kapag na-feature ang artwork mo. Dito parang big deal yun sa art world. Dahil dito naging standard ito sa pagde-define ng taste at artistic quality. Industrial Revolution at ang pagbabago sa art. Noong nagsimula ang Industrial Revolution, maraming bagay ang nagbago sa buhay ng mga artist. Mas naging madali at portable ang mga gamit sa pagpipinta, may foldable at easels at paint in tubes, kaya hindi na sila restricted sa isang lugar lang. Dati, umaasa lang ang artist sa mga patrons para magpa-commission ng artwork. Pero noong Industrial Revolution, mas dumami ang artist na nagpipinta para sa sarili nila. Hindi lang dahil may nagpagawa sa kanila. Dahil dito, lumabas ang iba't ibang art style at mas naging independent ang artist sa pagbuo ng kanilang art. Hindi na nila kailangan sundin ang uso o kung ano ang gusto ng patrons. Noong 90s, tuluyan nang nawala ang mga lumang artistic traditions at naging mas malaya ang mga artists na gumawa ng art ayon sa sarili nilang aesthetic at creativity. And that's all. Thank you.